One of the main features of Parshat Mishpatim is that it characterizes the different laws that are found both in interpersonal relationships between people, property, and way it interacts with people, and assorted different, what are Mishpatim, are laws. And part of the rubric of the Mishpatim is the whole concept as well as certain laws which are specific to the shoftim, to the judges, how they have to judge in an appropriate manner, that it will be a mishpat emet, there'll be a judgment of truth. We find at the beginning of Parak Kaf Gimel, the Torah tells us, do not accept a false report. And that's one example, as we will soon see, of an azhara, of a warning to the judges to be able to judge properly. And the Torah goes on in Parak Kaf Gimel by saying, do not pervert the judgment of your destitute person in his grievance. Distance yourself from a false word. Do not execute the innocent or the righteous, for I shall not exonerate the wicked. And here we have, do not accept a bribe, etc. We have here very specific ideas that are directed toward the shoftim. And as the Merosh Shirim Rav Reitz points out in source number 2, when we look at all of these laws and all these azharos, all of these warnings, we may have an initial gut reaction that says, this is distant from my life. I'll never be a judge. I'm not in the position of a legal Jewish court scene where I have to know these laws. What is its application? What is its relevancy to my life? So I'd like to, Mir Hashem, today take two examples where things which seem to be so distant from us and so unrelated to our lives are very much a calling for us and for who we are. And then I'd like to examine and analyze the fundamental, almost theme that runs across both of these laws, which we'll see is the inyan of emes, of truth and sheker and falsehood, and then discuss together, hopefully on a more practical, esoteric, and then practical level, the whole idea of midvar sheker tirchak, to distance ourselves from falsehood. Let's take a look at this first verse of do not accept a false report. On here, Rashi brings down the Gemara, which tells us, Zu, source 3, Azhara l'dayan, shelo yishma divrei bal din ad sheyavo bal din chavero. Rashi teaches us that when a person comes, a litigant comes to present their case, the judges are not allowed to hear the case until the other party is there and is ready to present their side immediately afterwards. And Rav Reitz notes that in reality we find clearly among the Sfarim that it would be best to have both parties there simultaneously. Because what happens, as soon as you hear one side of the story, to a certain extent, that side becomes a reality. And if the other side doesn't present for hours later, so that one side sticks in your head, and it's very hard then to retract and listen openly to the other side. So in the perfect world, if we could hear, sometimes we think mothers can do that, more than one person speaking at a time. So we would hear more than one Baal Din. But that's not reality. So we have to hear one after the other as a successive amount of time as possible. And here, the Meiri on Mishlei, in the end of source 4, notes, it's ha'ara dayan shelo yashko machshavotov amar shisaper lo rishon. What we're really learning here is that the judges cannot spend a tremendous amount of effort focusing and thinking and really pondering what the first one said. V'hu tovei et chaverat badin ad shishma divrei chavero. Because the natural process, the Maharal echoes this, is that when the Dayanim, when the courts hear the first person, they're immediately going to try to judge him favorably. They're going to see his point of view, even if he's correct. And they're not going to be open to hearing the other side. Now, what is the relevancy for our lives? I think the answer is very clear. Rav Reif speaks about that this is really a description of what happens to us. If we recognize this pitfall, that we are so easily impressed by first impressions, and we have such a difficult time to uproot that which we've heard, and that which we've taken in as what we would call the first truth, it's very hard then to rethink in our minds. And this happens so often in our lives. You know, we learn a certain, let's say, halacha as a child, we practice a certain way. And how many times do our kids go to yeshivas and then they come back and they see us in the kitchen on Shabbos and say, Ma, you're not doing it right. So do we have the knee-jerk reaction, I've been doing this for the last 45 years till right before you were born and when you were in diapers, and leave me alone? And we're so caught in that truth that we believe it is the original truth? Or are we open to saying, wow, I never knew that. Let me see it. Let me learn from you. Let me ask. Let me discuss. And let me see what indeed is correct. This